The Top Floor Please podcast, where women in leadership rise together. I'm your host, Melissa McCormick, executive coach and founder of the Grace and Salt Leadership Academy. This is your space to find clarity, grow in confidence, and lead with bold authenticity. Whether you're navigating the boardroom, building your team, or stepping into new territory, you're not alone. Let's talk real challenges, real growth, and real leadership because the top floor isn't just a place, it's a mindset. Alrighty then, let's get started. Hey everyone, welcome back to the Top Floor Please podcast. Today's episode is going to be a little bit different. It's all about Christmas, as you can see from my decorations. This tree, actually, I just need to share just a little bit here before I get into my message because I think it's pretty cool. Um, many years ago, I don't even know how many years ago, but my mother-in-law was suffering from dementia. And I had my laptop, go to the assisted living place, and we would sit down and I scanned all of her pictures. So she was born in 1920, and I scanned all of her pictures into my computer. And then we would sit there and we would go through them, and her memory would come back with those. I mean, it wasn't like she didn't know who we were. She did not know our names at this point. She knew we belonged to her. She knew we were family, but she just wasn't quite sure the relationship. But when I started going through, or my family, so it was Nick, Amanda, Mike, and I, we would be going through these pictures with her. She would remember. And so one Christmas, Nicholas said, and it was just like right before Christmas, and he said, "You know, it would be really great, Mom, if we could have a Christmas tree that had all of Grandma's pictures on them. So that way she could have it in her room and then she could remember those fun times that she had way back in the day." And so of course I look at him like, "Oh, okay, that's a great idea, but Christmas isn't a week. You expect us to turn this around in a week?" Well, as what does when somebody comes up with a great idea, and I'm like, "Oh my gosh, I can't let this opportunity go." So we did. We went and bought one of these tabletop, what is it? I don't know, 3 feet trees, and it's already pre-lit. We went to Walmart, we bought it, and we printed off all of the pictures. And Amanda and Nick and I cut them out and then took like Sharpie gold markers and outlined each one. We punched holes in them. We put, that stretchy elastic kind of thread on each one, and we hung it, and we gave that to her as a Christmas gift. I have since done that for many other families and friends. So this one in particular is our family tree, and so it's got all pictures of the kids and our family, Mike and I, friends, and I actually need to update it a little bit, but I just wanted to point that out because if you do have somebody who is suffering from dementia, that's tough. And um, this type of a tree can help them with their long-term memory. Typically it's the long-term memory that they also that comes back a little bit. But when we would leave those times, those afternoons with Evelyn, she knew. She knew who we were. Yeah, her memory didn't come back 100%, but it was there and she was there. And so I just want to share that with you. Or if you have somebody who needs this type of a Christmas tree, go out to their Facebook page, print their pictures, and give them this gift of a family tree. It's been really important to our family, and I did not expect this is nothing to do with this podcast today, but I really felt that it was important that somebody who's listening needed to hear that. Anyway, okay, so today's episode is going to be a little bit different. First of all, I'm starting out crying. That is a little bit different, but it's also my Christmas message, right? This is something personal that's been sitting on my heart for a bit. And eh, each December, sure. But I try to pause in July and then in December and review. I did this when I was in corporate too. So it's a very good exercise to be in. And that is to just sit back especially halfway through the year, to go, okay, what was my goals in the beginning of the year? Where am I at? Do things need to be revised and shuffled around? And what are my plans for the next 6 months? And so, and then at the end of the year, you're writing, because I literally would write a report. And most of the time I gave it to my boss and I sent it to him, said, this is what I've accomplished. Here's what the team has accomplished. This is how it's interacted or how it connects with the overall goals of the organization. Now, what he did with it, I don't know, but I do know that it was important for me to document because we forget, right? We're busy. We're doing all the things. We're running here, we're running there, and we don't take the time to stop and go, oh, yeah, that's right. That's right. This is what I did. This is what I accomplished. This is my mission. This is my purpose. And this is how much closer I am to meeting my goals. So this Christmas, this Bible verse has been really coming back to me, um, mainly because I'm in kind of a transition period with my business. And I felt like I was getting a little bit just out of alignment with God. And so this verse, Isaiah 6:8, kept coming back into my mind. And so I just want to read it. Um, from the Bible versus from my piece of paper that I'm looking at to keep me on track here. And so Isaiah 6:8. This is from the NIV version of the Bible translation. But it says, Then I heard the voice of the Lord saying, Whom shall I send, and who will go for us? And I said, Here am I, send me. Now, that verse has come up in my life in various times, quite often. And the first time that I learned about the verse was, goodness, 18 years ago, I'm thinking. Amanda was 11 years old. So Amanda and I went on a mission trip. This was our very first mission trip. We're going to West Virginia. Um, And we always, because it was my first one, I didn't know this was a thing, but traditionally, mission trips with students, they will select a Bible verse, right? That's going to be their theme of the week. And so this group chose Isaiah 6:8. So we had it on our sleeves, and it might have even been on the back of our shirts, but everybody wears the same shirt. There's a reason behind that. I guess it's not just the students, right? I've been on adult mission trips, we do the same thing. But the reason why you do that is so that if you have to fly somewhere or you're at a truck stop, you can easily see who is in your group that is missing or that you need to corral. So, but anyway, Isaiah 6:8, yeah. So that was the theme. It was printed right on our shirt, as I said. It was like on the shirt sleeve. And during that particular trip, I had a couple goals. One is Amanda was 11 years old. I did not want her and it wasn't our church, it was with a different youth group. So I didn't know these people. I volunteered, she could go as long as I was going to be a chaperone. But I also wanted to go because be- because I really at that time in my life, I wanted to be closer to the Lord. I wanted to really dive into my faith and create a stronger relationship with Him. And the way I wanted to do that was I wanted it through sweat equity. I wanted to go to this small town in West Virginia and sweat. I wanted to be in my mind. I wanted to be in my prayers. I wanted to be in my thoughts. And I just wanted to build something. I just really wanted to sweat. And so when we got there, I was asked to participate or help the kids, lead the kids in Vacation Bible School, which was not what I wanted to do. That was absolutely the furthest from what I wanted to do. And but Amanda wanted me to do that as well. She wanted me to be there, just kind of moral support with her as she's meeting new friends. And I did not want to do that. So I looked at my shirt and I saw the verse and I went, okay. okay, I will go where I'm being told to go, and I will follow you. And so I did. And it was a great experience. And what ended up happening was one of the other Amanda met friends and everything was fine. And one of the other chaperones really could not do some of the hard work that was required. And so we switched spots. So I was able to really work my muscles and really sweat and get closer to the Lord through those types of activities. Um, but it really was as simple as, here am I, send me. And I needed to obey. Yeah, I needed, I needed to obey. So ever since that experience in West Virginia, that verse has stayed with me and it shows up through my life and it's shaped much of my leadership, much of my decisions, and hopefully my business. And that's where I'm at right now with just kind of transitioning um into leading differently, leading my business differently from the perspective of following and obeying the Lord and not me leading, right? Right. So, and that's hard for me. For those of you who know me, I'm a bit of a control freak. Maybe you can relate to that. I am a doer. I love solving problems and I just think about how we can do this and then I think about God. And so in the last probably 10 weeks, I've been reversing that. And I've been thinking of praying first and then acting. And I'm slowing down. And that's been really, really hard for me, but it is important as we go into 2026. I felt that nudge again years later in 2018, right? That quiet whisper to leave my comfort zone in corporate America. I was writing this book. I was writing this book, Grace and Salt. And I kept feeling this nudge. And I knew, even though it was one of the hardest things I've ever had to do, I knew that I needed to do it. And so not only was I supposed to leave so I could finish this book, but I was then to become the owner of Grace and Salt Leadership Academy. That was a here am I, Lord, send me. And I went, I followed. Didn't happen perfectly. It wasn't fearlessly, right? So I stepped off the ledge and I had a safety net. And that was 6 years ago. And so here I am today with my podcast. And I just launched a new YouTube live that's by the time this is dropped, we'll have already had our first event on YouTube. And it's called Take Jesus to Work Day. And so it's a little bit different than what Top Floor Please is. I'm still doing both. But we'll see where this leads because I'm feeling that nudge again, that here am I, Lord, send me. Okay, this is what I'm hearing. I have so many of my clients who come to me and say, Melissa, how do you share your faith at work? Or how do you show up 100% and you don't leave Jesus in the car? That's the reason why we're going to be having monthly conversations about what leadership looks like from a biblical perspective, and so that we can bring our whole selves to work and be and to be more valuable to the organization and to ourselves and share the love of Jesus and God to everyone without being pushy and without running down the halls. But anyway, check it out if you're interested. Check it out. Take Jesus to Work Day. It's on my YouTube channel and it's the second Thursday of every month at noon Central Time. That's my little commercial for that. But let's go back to the verse. Here am I, send me. Simple, simple, right? 7 words, super simple. But that is God's invitation. And it begins with this quiet yes, right? Not a polished yes, not a confident yes, just a willing heart. Like Are you hearing that? Do you do you have something inside that you're like, oh, this is what I've always wanted to do, or this is what people have been telling me that I should be doing. This is something that I want to do. Pray about it. This is that, are you hearing that voice, that nudge? Because right, I'm going to be totally transparent with you right now that as I'm recording this, I'm a bit conflicted because this year has been filled with struggle, not so much struggle. Well, yeah, worry, frustration, hustle, bustle. I've been busting it, right? I pushed really hard to grow this business. I've done everything I know how to do in my strength, in my strategy, and somewhere in all of that, this is what I alluded to earlier. I kind of lost sight of why I left my comfort zone in the first place. Um, and I took it on me. I wasn't called, this is where I have the conflict, and maybe you can relate to this. I wasn't called to build something impressive, but in my ego, that's what I want to do. Like I want Grace and Salt Leadership Academy to be huge. I want so that when I retire, it continues on. I don't want to go through all this effort for it to die when I retire, for it to be retired when I retire. No, there's a lot of sweat equity. There's a lot of people that have been supporting me. I don't want to let anybody down. I want this to be Tony Robbins big. Like that's what's in my mind. But I'm relying on that. Like that's my ego. I don't know if that's what God wants. I don't know. Maybe God doesn't want that. Maybe there's a handful of people that I'm supposed to impact, and that's what I'm supposed to do. And I'm supposed to accept that, right? I was called to be faithful, to serve, to follow where God leads, just like you. So I just want to pause here for a second and tell you, um, if you're feeling that tension, you're not alone. Maybe you've been grinding it out. Maybe you've been hustling and still feel like you're treading water, right? Do you feel like that? Like, you're running on the treadmill, but you're running in place. You're not getting anywhere. Is that, yes, you've accomplished things, but you just still feel like you're spinning. That's kind of the way I feel right now. But then as I was preparing for this podcast, I realized what God has done. This year has been so incredible, filled with so many firsts. And I didn't even realize it until my son-in-law mentioned that to me. He's like, Melissa, do you realize how many firsts you've had? For me, they just don't even seem like firsts, right? I led our first Grace and Salt Bible study in April. I had a group of, I just sent it out to my community and I did an Eventbrite um, uh, registration thing. And I had 12 people sign up. And I went through Grace and Salt communication from the biblical sense from my book. And we did it. And it was successful. And I knew it was what I was supposed to do. I hired my first full-time employee. I launched Top Floor Please podcast. We spoke at a major women's conference, the Women's Leadership Conference in Green Bay, Wisconsin, like out of state. It wasn't just a little thing. There were 1,000 women there. I hosted my own event with two of my dear friends called Radiance in Rockford in September. We expanded our disc side of our business. I've been balancing district governor for Rotary responsibilities with running this company, coached leaders who are stepping boldly into their purpose. I spent real present time with my grandson, my family, supported my kids and my mom through a lot this year, even navigating household repair and improvements and trying to convince her that she really should sell the house and just move into an apartment. We traveled. I grew, I learned, and so much more, which is amazing. Again, it's amazing. And so at this time of year, we typically do this, right? We typically sit back and take inventory of things this year because we're preparing for next year. So if you have not done that, take some time. Take some time right now. If you're driving, obviously don't do it right now, but take inventory. What would you celebrate from this year? Just take a moment, write down your highlights, the big ones. Don't forget the small steps, the unexpected blessings. We tend to not give those small wins their due, right? Everybody's like, oh, you launched a podcast. That's amazing. Yeah, I did. But spending time with my grandson and teaching him what a penguin says, and then hearing him repeat that later on to his mom, that was huge, right? The podcast seems so small when I got little Finley, this incredible young boy who's listening to his yaya. That's what he's listening to, his yaya, which is me, his grandmother, as she reads him a book, and he's growing. That is incredible. And that's one of God's purposes for me, right? Um, but what I didn't mention out of what that whole list of things that I talked about, who's missing? God. Yes, God was missing. He was with me for sure, but in an inconsistent fashion. Right? I did the Bible study in April, and then I launched the podcast in June, and I hired a full-time employee, and I'm working and I'm working and I'm hustling and I'm bustling, and we expanded our disc, and I've got a really great corporate client who we just really are doing well together, and I'm helping them meet their goals. But where's God in all of that? Where is God? I invited him in, but not first. I prayed after. Like, this is what I want to do, Lord. Help me do it. Instead of, where do you want me to be? Send me, right? Instead of that. I led with strategy more than surrender. In fact, I was on a coaching call. Not, I wasn't leading the call. I have a Christian business coach who's been helping me the last 10, 12 weeks. And I was on one of her group coaching calls, and one of the gentlemen there, when we were talking about our year, said to me that it sounds like you need to surrender. Like, you mentioned the word control several times in your explanation of how the year went. It sounds to me like you need to surrender. So that is my word for 2026. I always pick a word. For 2026, it is surrender. And that is to remind me that God comes first, and I am to listen, and I am to hear, and I am to pay attention to the people around me and what they're saying, because they are his messengers as well. And, maybe, oh my gosh, I didn't expect the tears. Um, but maybe you've been there too. Maybe you're there right now, right? The holidays that amplify everything. There's pressure, there's expectation, there's exhaustion. If you're hosting, there's food and that's expensive these days. So how are you going to afford it? All of those kinds of things. There's emotions. Maybe you don't get along with all of your family, but you need to invite all of your family. All of that. Presents, wrapping, if you've got little kids, there's all that anticipation, everything. But in that noise, we forget the one thing God is truly asking for, and that's presence. That's our presence, not perfection. And when I say presence, I don't mean gifts. I mean Presence, presence. To be totally present, right? Not perfection. And that's the heart of Isaiah 6:8. And honestly, it's the heart of Christmas. Yes, Jesus is the reason for the season. Absolutely. But obeying and going where God leads us and being a follower is really where we need to get to in this Christmas season. It's God sending and it's us saying yes, right? Mary, think about Mary. I could do a whole podcast on Mary, what that was probably like. Like I wasn't there, but I can I can only imagine. Okay, so you got Mary, right? Angel comes to her in a dream. Well, and says this is going to happen. Joseph, Joseph, your betrothed, your fiance is pregnant, and you know it's not yours. What would you do? The shepherds, the wise men, all of them responded, here am I, Lord, send me, in their own way. But that verse is a leadership verse. It's about availability. Here's a big word. It's about obedience. It's about stepping out before you feel fully ready. Mm, mm. Women in particular, we have a hard time with that. We want to be sure that if we're looking at a job posting, we want to be sure we have all, we have met all the criteria. And so we can't do that. We don't want to post for it until we have everything that it states there, right? We need certifications, we need degrees, we need all this stuff, but we don't. If that is where God is leading you, then you need to post for that position. If you know, look, I'm going to grow into it, but that's where I want to be, then you need to post for it, right? Sometimes that yes looks like choosing peace in chaos, right? There's drama that's going on in the office. And sometimes you need to choose the peace instead of being part of the drama, being part of the gossip, being part of whatever's going on. Be part of the peace. Sometimes it's showing grace when salt would be easier, right? Sometimes it's holding your tongue and giving somebody grace when you really just want to tell them how you're feeling. Some of our tongues are very sharp and very quick. Sometimes it's choosing salt when grace would be safer. Yeah. Sometimes it's stepping into opportunity that scares you, that promotion. District governor of Rotary, for example, right? Sometimes it's simply being still and waiting. That's my hardest part, being still and waiting. So as we close out this year, my prayer for you is simple. I pray for quiet peace in the waiting, strength in your purpose, and grace and salt in every step of your journey ahead in 2026. If your heart has been whispering, because this is my nudge to you. If your heart has been whispering, Lord, I want to make an impact. I want to lead well. I want to use what you've placed in me, in my spiritual gifts. Then this is your gentle nudge that I'm giving you today. I want you to say yes, even if you don't know what comes next, especially when you don't know what comes next. Surrender. Here am I, Lord. Send me. Merry Christmas. I am so thrilled that you're here. I'm grateful for you. I'm grateful that you're listening. I'm grateful to walk this leadership journey with you. Here's my wish for you over this holiday season. May your season be full of family, joy, rest, and just enough hope to carry you into the new year. Have an absolutely wonderful, wonderful Christmas, and I will see you in the new year. Take care, everyone. Thanks so much for hanging out on the top floor. If today's episode gave you something to think about or a little boost, share it with your friends to keep the momentum going. And hey, if you're ready to rise, find your voice, and lead with clarity and confidence, we'd love to connect with you. Reach out at graceandsaltleadership.com to learn how Grace and Salt can support your growth. Remember, you don't have to lead like everyone else, just lead like you. All right, I'll see you next time on the top floor.